What is up, Breaking Bad fans? Kino here, and we are back with another Breaking Bad log. Today we're looking at an episode I know you've all been looking forward to, Better Call Saul. Now, quick note before we get into the episode review. I mentioned in the first Breaking Bad log that I did that I wasn't going to talk about things from the Better Call Saul show in these videos. However, given that this episode is critical to setting up that show, I will be talking about some elements from Better Call Saul. So, spoiler warnings now.
Hey, whoa! Oh, you're breaking up there. I didn't quite catch that last. Whew.
The episode opens with a static shot of Badger on a bench. He's approached by a guy looking to buy meth. However, Badger realizes that it's a cop because he sees police vans nearby. However, he lets himself get talked into believing the guy's story and ends up selling him the meth. The guy then immediately reveals that he's a cop and busts him. Also, we notice that the bench that he's been sitting on this whole time has an ad for Saul Goodman on it. After the title, we continue where we left off with Jesse and Jane last episode. His TV has started working, and it's actually playing an ad for Saul Goodman as well. Jesse and Jane, meanwhile, are laying on his floor after having sex. Jesse suggests that they get high, but she reveals that she's actually in recovery. Back at home, Skylar leaves for work on a Saturday, which annoys Walt. While she's gone, Marie calls the house in a panic looking for Skylar, and Walt ends up answering. She has him come over to check on Hank, who hasn't left his room since the explosion. Hank is clearly suffering from some PTSD, but refuses to admit to it. Walt then gives him a speech about facing death and encourages him to get back out there. Back at Jesse's house, he and Walt count the money that they're making. Jesse then calls Badger, who hasn't kicked in his full amount. However, he learns that Badger was arrested this morning. Meanwhile, Badger is in interrogation, being questioned by the cop that tricked him. However, this is interrupted by the arrival of his lawyer, the infamous Saul Goodman. The character obviously needs no introduction. He's colorful, flamboyant, and remarkably funny in order to balance out all the drama of the show. He's definitely the breakout character of Breaking Bad, and for good reason. Walt and Jesse then drive to Saul Goodman's office. Jesse reveals that Saul got his former partner Emilio off twice. He also says that Saul is a quote-unquote criminal lawyer, meaning he will break the law in order to get his clients off. They then do a rock, paper, scissors to decide who will go in, which Walt loses. Walt then heads in and introduces himself as Badger's uncle. Saul reveals that his real name is McGill, and the whole Saul Goodman identity is just a persona that he puts on. He then tells Walt that he's made a deal for Badger to get off if he rats out his supplier. Walt, not wanting this to happen, offers Saul a bribe to throw the case, but he refuses. Walt and Jesse then decide to take another approach. They kidnap Saul and take him out into the middle of the desert. Fun fact, the masks that they're wearing in this scene are the same one they used during the break-in in Season 1.
The hell is this?
That's all they had.
Then you go to another store. If this is all they had, you're in the wrong place.
Let's put it on.
Now Saul assumes they're sent by someone named Lalo and begs for mercy in Spanish. However, when Walt starts coughing, he realizes who it is. He then offers his services to them as their lawyer, telling them to put $1 in his pocket. Now, let's talk about this scene, because it's important to the Better Call Saul show. Now, when they wrote the lines about Lalo and Ignacio, they had no idea what it actually meant. It was just a funny line to suggest Saul's history with the cartel. But when it came time to write the Better Call Saul show, they retroactively wrote the characters of Lalo and Nacho to fit this line from the original show. Back at Saul's office, they discuss what to do about Badger. Saul suggests just killing him, which, while Walt is open to it, Jesse refuses. He then instead suggests that they hire a guy named Jimmy In-N-Out to go to prison for them. This will cost them much more money, but they ultimately agree to it. They then set up a meeting which will implicate Jimmy as Heisenberg. However, on the day of the meeting, Badger identifies the wrong guy as Jimmy. Thinking quickly, Walt blocks Hank's view while Jesse goes in to tell Badger to move. The scene is very humorous, and we can see that Walt is a very convincing liar to pretty much everyone but Skyler. When he's clear, the deal goes through the way they planned, and Jimmy In-N-Out is arrested as Heisenberg. He actually gets down on his knees before the cops arrive, showing that he was expecting the arrest. Also, one of the vans the police use is Duke City Flowers, which Badger identified at the beginning of the episode. Everyone is happy that they finally caught Heisenberg. However, Hank can tell that something about the situation is not right. Back at the school, Walt gets a visit from Saul, who's tracked him down. He mentions that his private investigator charged him for 3 hours when it only took him 1. This doesn't really sound like Mike, who we know really honors his deals. We'll talk about this more later, but the character of Mike had not yet been created at this point. Either way though, Saul offers his services to Walt, as he recognizes the value of Walt's product. Specifically, he offers to be Walt's Tom Hagen, who was Vito Corleone's lawyer and consigliere. So he's offering more than just his legal services here. He's offering to be an advisor and mentor to Walt in the criminal enterprise. It's also interesting to look back on this episode and notice how much Saul injected himself into Walt's life. I mean, this guy took him out to the middle of the desert and threatened to kill him, and here Saul is seeking him out after the fact. This will make a lot more sense once we get to Better Call Saul, but Saul's whole thing is not just offering legal services, it's also clear that he's interested in the excitement and danger of someone like Walt. And as the episode ends, he says the iconic line,
So if you want to make more money and keep the money that you make, better call Saul.
This is definitely one of the standout episodes of the series. It's very tightly paced, very funny, and introduces one of the fan-favorite characters of Saul Goodman. It's also directly responsible for the Better Call Saul show, so we have a lot to thank for this episode, which is written by Peter Gould. And that's pretty much everything I had to say about the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one, coming soon. I was going to reference the line saying, "Why should you go to jail for a crime someone else noticed?" But I just realized it's actually from Arrested Development. But doesn't that feel like something that Saul would say? Anyway, Russell, Sean, Heart of Markness, Logan, Clean, John Reyna, Jesse Sterling, Andrew Stewart, Ops Gracing Media, Daz J. Kid, Conan Higgins, Sam Cedarlin, Don Lucania, Celery Man, and Jenna Marie Johnson.